We're on the lunch break of day 22 of the Undercover Policing Inquiry, Tranche 2, Phase 2. We're listening to the second day of evidence of Bob Lambert. I'm joined with Dave Smith from the Blacklist support group. Dave, what do you make of Lambert's evidence today so far?
It's shocking, even if you've read it. I mean, we haven't even got to the really outrageous bits yet, but
CTS is pretty outrageous, right?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Let me start again. Everything is done and everything is talked about is outrageous. There are some bits that will be all over the newspapers and all over, the TV, hopefully. But the stuff that we've just listened to about CTS, he was infiltrating London Greenpeace and a young female activist. I mean, given the fact that she's clearly teenage, I'm assuming she was at sixth form, when he was actually having the, within a few weeks of turning up to London Greenpeace meetings, this bloke is, going down the pub with her afterwards and driving her home, and then sort of gets into a sexual relationship with her. And the only reason the sexual relationship has finished with CTS is because she goes off to university in another country. And I mean, there's certain bits that stick in my head. I mean, the bit where he broke up with her and then they planted a tree, he made her plant a tree together to mark the breaking up of a relationship. Oh, I literally thought, what are you doing, you weirdo? But I mean, the shocking bits was the stuff where the KC David Barr says to him, "I've got this written down, so I didn't actually get it wrong." Where are we? Bum 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 bum. Here we go. And so go on. Yeah, this is him talking to him about this young woman. David Barr, the KC for the inquiry, says, "I don't want to beat about the bush, but you didn't have to have sex with her, did you?" He says, "Yeah, I accept that, but I didn't give it a moment's thought at the time. I was acting as Bob Robinson." Says, here we go. Again, he says, "Why did you get involved with a sexual relationship with CTS? I didn't do it to bolster my cover, but clearly it did have some benefits for my cover." And then Barr says, "Wasn't it just an opportunity to engage in a sexual relationship with a much younger woman?" And his answer was, "I was told by managers to form close friendships. This was not just me seeking sexual gratification." To which Barr then says to him, "Were you doing it for the job?" If it wasn't sexual gratification, what was it? And you just think, this is just, within a few weeks of being there, he's cracking on with a sexual relationship with a schoolgirl. I mean, quite honestly, what the... This is a grooming gang. They're being in false identities, false, a big bank account, a car, and driving around and meeting young, impressionable young women. If this was any other circumstance, you'd be calling this grooming. Absolutely. Well.
Yeah, no, I mean, it should be underlined that Bob Lambert was in his early 30s, as a married man with 2 children at this time. I think it was really telling when he talked about the time that we heard from Martin Lowe, who was a London Greenpeace activist, about CTS, about how he invited CTS and Bob Lambert over to his house for a meal, and that they'd gone there. We were showing a photo of them there at the meal. Martin Lowe described them as a devoted couple. Now, quite unprompted, in a lot of Lambert's answers, he talked about what Martin Lowe would have thought about the relationship. And I think he really told on himself when he mentioned that Martin Lowe had said at a London Greenpeace meeting that he'd rang up Bob Lambert's cover work, and that the person at the end of the phone didn't know who he was. So he said, so Lambert was like, "That was the pressure I was under at the time when I went round for a meal at his house." Which I think really showed that in reality, this relationship with CTS was a really key to his cover. That without this relationship that he was having, that there was he feared that Martin Lowe would think there was something off about him. But yeah, I mean, it seems very, very clear that it wasn't just sexual gratification, it wasn't just the job, it was both. It was put to him that he hadn't been undercover very long, as you said. I mean, he was deployed in the middle of the June. He seemed to have engaged in the sexual relationship in the August. he wasn't lost in his identity at all. Do you know, it's not like he didn't know who he was. He said that he never lost sight of who he was.
Sorry, can I give you?
Go on.
Can I give you the exact quote that Barr asked him? This sexual relationship happened within the first few months of you being undercover. There's no question of you being psychologically harmed or you lost yourself at this point, was there? So, you know.
I mean, then he responded saying that it was it was almost like only God can judge me. Only a qualified clinical psychologist like Gordon Turnbull, who I don't know the fuck that is, can judge me.
But we'll all be Googling him now because I'm putting bets on Paddy Power that he's one who does psychological tests for the old Bill. I'm putting money on that.
Yeah. I mean, I would imagine so, right? I mean, it was just, but it was. I mean, I think he really. There was a few times where I thought that Lambert really, he was desperately trying. I mean, look, through all day we've heard Lambert talking very, very slowly, very meticulously, precisely, not using, not using too many words, keeping it all very kind of just real long gaps between everything that he said. But he still couldn't stop himself from betraying what actually was going on.
Yeah, I mean, the phrase that we've heard more than anything else during the whole day is "I cannot recall." I mean, if he said that once, he sent it 20 times. Yeah. I mean, just non-stop. But the phrase we've heard from the David Barr, who's the counsel for the inquiry, who's answering the questions, is it's basically reading the reports, special branch reports, and the question that he asks is this exaggerated? You appear to be accusing people of criminality, but why haven't you added any evidence into the report at all? Isn't this just an exaggeration? I mean, and every time he's going, "Oh, I can't recall." It's like, I mean, for God's sake, stop it. There's this bit where he's being asked to justify, his actions, and once again, I wrote it down. I'd learnt to I can't even say it.
Compartmentalize.
That's the word. Yeah, my life. I was playing the role of Bob Robinson. So everything he was doing, he wasn't doing it personally as Bob Lambert. He was just doing all of these abusive things because that's the kind of thing that Bob Robinson would have been doing. Which is funny because none of the people who I knew were like at the time were sort of acting in this way whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, during my early 30s, the idea of a man going out with someone who just left school and was about to go to university would have been considered uncouth and poor behaviour, very poor behaviour, not acceptable.
They'd have painted stuff outside your house, mate.
Yeah, right. Literally, man. It's so blatant. I did notice that Lambert, when he was under any sort of pressure, would start talking in the third person about Bob Robinson. It really reminded me of the kind of defence that we heard from Trevor Morris at the end of Phase 1, where he started talking to himself in the third person quite often. And I think this was one of the ways we started seeing this defence he's putting up of this slow, frail old man who can't quite hear things is starting to break down. It's quite clear that he can hear things, that he can talk quite lucidly when he's put under any sort of when he's not put any sort of pressure. But then he catches himself. It's like every time that he comes across as really with it, he'll be like, "Oh, sorry, could you repeat?" The next time there's a question asked. It seems really blatant to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, as Jackie, I was lucky enough to see Jackie's evidence last week, and as Jackie said, the man is a trained and skilled liar, and he's constantly talking about he was acting the part of Bob Robinson, and it gives me the impression that sometimes at the moment he's acting the part of Bob Lambert, a particular role he's playing. Do you want to introduce Tracy?
Someone else who was following the live evidence today, Tracy. You've been watching Bob Lambert. You saw a lot last week as well of the women who he deceived giving evidence. What have you made of today?
I mean, I find it quite disgusting that we're meant to believe that he was so stressed out, and it was the pressure that he was under with the brief he was given from Special Branch that to justify engaging in sexual relationships with someone who was just about to go to university, and But I mean, you could tell he was, nervous, and I think the questioning was quite good, as well. And he tripped himself up a bit as well when kind of denied. I can't remember now. He denied something that had been disclosed in Operation Hearn about if he knew.
Yeah, we've seen quite a lot of that. A lot of information that he gave to Operation Hearn, which was in 2013. Is then presented to him, often contradicting what he's now saying. I mean, I think the person who most disagrees with 2024 Bob Lambert is 2013 Bob Lambert. And I mean, each time it happens, he goes, "Oh yes, but I've got nothing to add. I've got nothing to add to that. Yes, that's everything I know in 2013. Yeah, I'd forgotten it now, but there it all is." It's not believable.
I mean, I find it fascinating. I would love to get into his head, and I'd love for to be able to work out kind of like how you can. I mean, I don't believe it, but if what he's saying is true, that I had to become a new identity. Let's be honest, he wasn't thinking with his brain. He wasn't considering the emotions of the victims involved. He was thinking with another part of his body, wasn't he? And it's absolutely disgusting that you can do that to another human being. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he was asked repeatedly by Barr about whether he considered the emotional impact on CTS, and I mean, it was quite clear. I mean, as Dave quoted earlier, he wasn't thinking about her at all. He just didn't give her any. It was put to Barr that if he'd given it a moment's thought, it would have been obvious. To which, he didn't. He admitted he didn't give her a moment's thought.
Yeah. Well, his wife at home as well, I mean, one of the other interesting questions was about, would CTS have entered into a relationship with you had she known that you were an undercover police officer? And he's given it all. Well, maybe, and who knows? Probably you're right. And the mental gymnastics that man has had to go through must be quite incredible, really.
It was quite. I mean, that was quite telling, that, because he had a big preamble before. In the middle of it, he said no, she wouldn't have. But I mean, he had to couch that in loads of other sort of things around it. But yeah, he knows full well she didn't consent. She couldn't consent. Although it was quite telling as well. We started hearing questions about Jackie. I'm sure we'll hear a lot more of those this afternoon. But it seems quite clear that the sexual relationship with Jackie was 23, so somewhat older than CTS, but a full 10 years younger than Lambert at the time. The sexual relationship with her started whilst the relationship with CTS was ongoing. So, I mean, it's wonders he had any time to report on actual activism with what he was getting up to.
I mean, one of the other interesting things I found was that, I don't know if you noticed, but the women that he was targeting, I mean, we heard from Belinda last week. Now, Belinda wasn't even an activist. And CTS was still quite young, off to university, and he mentioned about Jackie. He said, she was very, I think he used the word competent or respectable, resourceful, and all this. So does that mean he was just targeting a particular type of woman, or does it mean because obviously these people are less active or whatever. I don't know. It's just like just get what I'm saying.
Totally. I mean, I think to me it seems fairly clear that the type of woman he's targeting is a much younger one who's quite attractive. He seems to just go for attractive women, as opposed to what it doesn't matter what else they were doing. It was just whether he was sexually attracted to them or not. That seems to be it, as far as I can tell. I mean, maybe we'll learn more as the time goes on. We are on a fairly short lunch break. Everything's been streamed live so far this morning. When we went to lunch, just beforehand, Barr pointed out that the stream needed to be cut off for the next set of questions. I'm not sure if it'll be going back on again at some point this afternoon, but there will be a section of the hearing this afternoon which will be so full of restriction orders it can't be broadcast. It means my reporting will be a bit more sparse than it normally is. Is there anything you want to add before we sign off?
I don't know, Dave, anything you want to?
As well as that, occasionally there's some humour in this as well, because some of the reports, this is 1984, and one of these reports talks about a group of young lads turning up to a meeting who were, between 14 and 20 years old, who who had spiky hair and it was gelled up and bright pink. Because it's like he's never seen a punk rocker before. It's like, what's all this about? And then later on, there was this terrible crime that had been committed by someone, which was all over his report, which was the theft from a pet shop of a chinchilla, open bracket, small American mammal, close bracket. It's like, wow, God, all the taxpayers' money going into that is really paying off, you know.
I'd like to know how much is spent on taxpayers' money on all of this, and I'd also like to see I know they said they don't get training, but come on, there's coaching there or something. There's training, and I'd love to have the books opened on that if we ever do get to see that.
Yeah, we'll be back again this afternoon. Hearing's meant to restart at 10 to 1. Like I say, it won't be live streamed. My tweets will start up again at about 1:05 because there's a 10-minute delay. Thanks for joining us. I will do another recap in the break this afternoon and one of these at the end of the day. And there'll be a Twitter Spaces this evening, hopefully about 7:30. So join us there if you can. Cheers for now.